There are stories about the track team, about how Pop Warner got off the train when they played at Lafayette, and the coach from the Lafayette team met him at the train and said, "Where's your team?" And here these three guys got off the train.
Jim Thorpe, Gus Welch, and Louis Tuanima went on to defeat the entire Lafayette team.
Tuanima is the one that always amazes me, and there's a legend printed in the newspaper that there's a game meet in Harrisburg, and he missed the train. So he ran all the way down the Harrisburg Pike, ran the meet, won it, and came back with the team on the train.
In the summer of 1912, Pop Warner and his Carlisle track stars traveled to Stockholm, Sweden for the 5th Olympic Games. Jim Thorpe and Louis Tuanima stole the show, pushing the United States into the spotlight for the first time. Tuanima, despite being unaccustomed to running on a circular track, won 2 silver medals in distance running. But it was Jim Thorpe who shocked the world, taking the gold medal in both the pentathlon and the more popular decathlon, shattering the world record and his competitors. So impressive was Thorpe's display that at the closing ceremony, King Gustav proclaimed of Thorpe,
"You, sir, are the greatest athlete in the world."
Both he and Louis Tuanima came back to victory parades and marched through Carlisle.
It would be the largest celebration in the town's history. But neither Thorpe nor Warner had time to rest on their laurels. 2 days later marked the start of the 1912 football season, and expectations were high after the success of the team in 1911.
I would think that most sports historians would say the best year for football in Carlisle was 1912. That was the year they went almost undefeated. They were considered the presumptive national champions, and Thorpe, of course, had just come back from the Olympics. So, you've got this incredible football team that took the field.
These young men, Jim Thorpe and Alex Arcasa and Gus Welch and Possum Powell and all those incredible guys who were not always particularly huge, strapping football players, really put Carlisle on the map. And they played Ivy League schools like Princeton and Yale. They beat these teams. It wasn't even a college, and it was competing against all these incredible athlete and sports machine schools. What happened at Carlisle was very exciting and was a magic thing.
They really felt like they're on a level playing field with whites, and they have a chance to really, show themselves. They're an Indian team competing against a white team.
Carlisle had no tradition, but what the Indians did have was a real race pride and a fierce determination to show the palefaces what they could do when the odds were even. It was not that they felt any definite bitterness against the conquering whites or against the government for years of unfair treatment, but rather they believed the armed contest between red man and white had never been waged on equal terms.
For the Carlisle Indians, sport would provide an avenue of equal opportunity that society did not. On the playing field, the Indians had their first even break. Fleeting though it was, in the early 1900s, Little Carlisle dominated college football by consistently beating major schools many times their size.
Carlisle, I guess, wasn't very well known until the Indians arrived there. And they were there and they made such an impact on the nation, on sports in general. And today, they're still well known and revered.
No athlete from Carlisle was more revered than Jim Thorpe. Born just 8 years after the Carlisle school itself, Wathohug, or Right Path, spent a youth free in the natural canvas of Prague, Oklahoma. Like a deer moving effortlessly across the fields and through the woods, this boy, the future Jim Thorpe, would unknowingly grow the strength to carry nations on his back. At Carlisle, Thorpe proved himself to be a versatile athlete.
Jim Thorpe was bigger than life, a legendary hero to so many of us. He was an amazing athlete. He was a wonderful runner. He was a track star. He was captain of the basketball team in 1910. He was an amazing football player. He could kick a ball all the way across the football field.
On the gridiron, Thorpe had no rivals. No college player had his natural aptitude for the game. Thorpe had the ability to size up his surroundings and make the most of every opportunity. He also had a marvelous power of concentration that he put into every movement, while always on the lookout for the next maneuver that would make him even better. All of this and more put Thorpe in a class by himself. One famous opponent who could attest to this was future General and U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower. In 1912, Pop Warner was anxious to make a good showing against Army, which boasted one of the finest records in the East. It was one game Thorpe and his teammates had little trouble preparing for. They only needed to remember that it was the grandfathers of the Army players who fought the Indians on their native lands. During the game, the young Eisenhower, much to his dismay, encountered Thorpe, who made a habit of running around or simply over would-be defenders. At the end of the day, it was Carlisle that would emerge the victor. Jim Thorpe took 22 of the 27 points scored against the cadets. They would be just a small part of the nearly 200 he would score that season.
Score is 27-6, and I scored 22 points. There was a ball kicked to me back of my goal line, and I ran through the Army for a touchdown. But there was a penalty called, so the ball had to be kicked over. Incidentally, it was kicked to me again. I took it right back through for another touchdown.